Hey, welcome in. It's Inbounds. We are locked into a Wednesday and a 4 o'clock hour and a very special lady in the house, which needs no introduction. If you're just getting off work, if you've been away, you don't know. I tried to promote it everywhere that we could on Facebook and yesterday and let you know that Debbie Ryan was going to come in and spend some time with us today. And I said, Debbie, that's all you get. You get an hour. That's it. Just an hour. 34 years, you get an hour. Unless, like the old days when I used to go on vacation, at this other radio station where I get up in the morning and do sports, I would get all these coaches to do sports, and Debbie always took a day so she could do sports. You remember those days?
I do remember. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Good to see you. How you feeling? You're fighting the same thing I am.
I'm fighting the same thing you are. I don't know what.
We may need the same hospital room.
Yeah, exactly. It's I just think you get to the end of the season and all your defenses are down, and so you end up with a terrible cold. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You do fine during the season, and then you start sleeping normally, and you get sick.
That's true. And then your body's all screwed up.
Yeah, you get sleep too much, don't sleep enough. It's crazy.
On the bus, upright position, with a pizza, without a pizza.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, it's good to see you. I know we have a lot to cover, and I want to go back to 1975, and we'll try to do it in movie form, and get all the way through to your career and why you call it quits and the whole 9 yards. And so it's good to see you, and I appreciate you coming to do the hour. You deserved it. You deserved, for people to be able to hear from you. I don't think you haven't done any real interviews after your press conference, have you? Have you talked to anybody?
I think I did one. Yeah. With Channel 19.
Oh, okay.
And they did a sit-down with me about a week and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. Which ended up being a pretty good interview.
Well, you're easy to talk to. You always were. And as I said, I've known you since 1980, and I was 27 years old, had all my hair, and you were this young...
I don't remember you with hair.
And a mustache.
I remember the mustache.
I had all my hair until 84. And
isn't it funny that you could grow a mustache and you can't grow hair?
I know. I got more hair. I got more hair in my ears than I have in my head. So, but I just remember those days, and with Gene hiring me in 1980, and how close it was, and that story is a great story about you being, with Gene Corrigan being the AD here, who turns out he's your uncle,
right?
And the fact that you come here to get your master's, and all of a sudden you wind up coaching a women's basketball team,
right? I was actually Dan Bonner's assistant, and I was also coaching field hockey.
Right.
So I had two sports, which I absolutely loved because I like doing everything, and it just became available to me after those 2 years. I was getting ready to graduate and move on, and actually both jobs were open at that time, both field hockey and the basketball job. Huh. So it was sort of like I had a choice about which one I wanted to coach, and there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to coach basketball.
Right.
But it was amazing where it went from there. In terms of everything that happened after that,
Sure.
I wouldn't have at that age. I didn't really realize that women's basketball was going to be the flagship sport of women's sports.
Sure,
because really, like gymnastics in the Olympics was the big sport, and we were just barely getting started here, with women's sports in general, and we kept adding them as we went. So it was an interesting ride and a lot of fun.
And Gene had to go to the president, President Hereford, right? At that
President
time?
Hereford, right?
He had to go see him and say, "Look, I don't know, but there's a little nepotism here. I'm going to hire Debbie, and she's my niece."
Right.
And what was it Hereford said? I don't care.
No. He said, "What's her last name?" And he said Ryan.
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
He said, "Don't worry about it then."
Yeah. He said, "That's right, Ryan. Nobody will really know." That's right. Debbie Ryan is in house. She'll be here. In fact, I'll give you the phone number if you want to call. You certainly can. 888-484-3622. 888 for the Mac is the number. 888-484-3622. Anytime during the hour, you can interrupt us, and you can say hi to Deb while she's here. She's going to be here till 5, fighting the cold, and we may be just coughing together. So,
yeah.
Need a call.
Pardon me. If
so anyway, so you take over with basically no budget. I mean, and to try to recruit.
No, we didn't have a budget. We didn't have a locker room.
Yeah, that's the famous.
We had a locker
story.
room where 3 or 4, all the sports dressed in one locker room, and we had 5 urinals in there too. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy for women's teams. There were only 2 bathrooms and the urinals. So it was made for a men's team, and we had like 5 women's teams in there, or 3 women's teams in there, whatever we had back then. And it was nuts. Like, you'd be doing a halftime speech, and 4 people would walk in and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, you talking? Oh,
are you guys up 3?
Yeah. What's going on? Oh, there's a game tonight." I just came in to get my socks. Sorry.
What was the reaction at that time from the University of Virginia population and the athletic, from the students? What was the relationship that your team had back in the late 70s?
Well, we've always had a great relationship with the university community in general. They've always supported us, even when we weren't very good. But students didn't come to our games, not very much at all. They really didn't. And that's been the biggest thing that we've been trying to change is, that culture of student that just goes to men's sports. And now you're seeing that happening because you have generations of kids growing up playing the sports. So, a lot of women didn't play all these different sports, so they don't go and support them, because they never even played it. They don't really have a connection to it. And when they go to a men's event, they're only going because probably their boyfriend is going. But now you're having generations of young women playing different sports, wanting to support it, wanting to be a part of it, and it's just been it's great the way that they kind of embraced us little by little as we went.
Sure. Did the success of Ralph and the spotlight of the men's team help you?
I think it probably helped us a little bit, but in terms of our program, but I think it helped me a lot because I got to see things that I would have been exposed to. Had I not had the opportunity to be there under Coach Holland and watching, he just made everything available to me. And Ralph was such a big draw back then. I mean, the place was sold out in seconds. People were hanging off the rafters for every game that he played. And so, I mean, it was an amazing time for me to watch. How do you actually handle a team like that? Like, I never would have even dreamed that I could have an opportunity to have a player like Ralph or a player like Jeff Lamp in my program. And so it just was really educational for me. And we used to have an office downstairs under the steps, remember?
Sure.
And there were no windows.
Right.
But I had a closet there that backed up into the men's dressing room, the men's visitor dressing room. So I could sit in there during halftime of the men's games and hear Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith.
How about that?
Jimmy V.
So you could hear their halftime talk.
Heard everything. Heard their pregame and halftime
would you do
talk.
that? You would do that on purpose, I would think.
Well, yeah, I took the tiles out so I could hear everything.
You wanted to hear?
Yeah, I would just go in my closet.
Did you make notes? Would you write down stuff?
I'd listen to. Now, some of them, you wouldn't want to make notes on because if anybody saw you writing what you were writing, that wouldn't be very good. But some of them are just because the way you motivate boys and the way you motivate women is totally different. So, but it was that was a huge education for me. I
bet.
And I mean, we go back to I don't remember if Norm Sloan was there, but Lefty Drizel.
Sure.
I sat in that closet listening to Lefty scream and yell and just funny. And come on, boys, y'all can play a lot better than this, boys. Come on, boys, let's get out there now, win this ball game.
You do a good Lefty. Debbie Wright, I guess she'll be here at 5:00, and we're so glad that she stopped by. But that had to be, and from a recruiting standpoint, though, that I'm guessing that Virginia was kind of being put on the map and kind of helped you a little bit.
That did help,
yeah.
Yeah, because, admissions here went up, like, I forget, 50-fold, because everybody wanted to see Ralph and hang around with him. And so definitely we became more of a visible program because we were the women's program. So whenever you have a really good men's program, it always helps you.
Sure.
And vice versa. It helps.
Sure.
It helps to have that media coverage and hearing the name and everybody wanting to be there. So it really did help us in that respect.
When did you start to see a budget increase so you could recruit? Then when actually did you get...
The rules back then precluded us from recruiting because it was the AIAW was the group that we played in, and it wasn't until like 1982 or 83 that those rules changed. So we had to use our own money to recruit. You weren't allowed to recruit. You weren't allowed to get any expenses. You had to, if you wanted to go recruit somebody, you had to drive your own car and pay your own gas. So that's how they wanted to keep recruiting from being in the women's sports.
Because of the the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women,
right? And they had all these bans on prohibitions on recruiting.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't
realize that.
Yeah, so at $10,000 a year, I was like trying to pay for my apartment, my food. Sometimes I listen to Mark and how he eats, and I said, that's a lot like me. I ate a lot like Mark with the noodles, the oodles of noodles.
A little spoon of peanut butter for lunch.
Yeah, that's about all you get. Maybe an apple. That's only when apples were in. You could grab them off somebody's tree.
So your first coaching paycheck was $10,000 a year?
It was $10,000. Yeah. And I remember I went in, and it was published in the Daily Progress one year, and it was like I was the worst paid coach by like multiple thousands of dollars. And so I marched myself up to the AD's office, and I said,
and of course Gene is gone by now, right? I mean,
no, Gene was there.
He was still there. Okay, he was still there.
So I sit down, and I said, don't you think I should make more money? It's really embarrassing that I'm the lowest paid coach. And he said something that I will always remember, and he says, you know what? He said, the first thing you better do is learn how to win. Now get out of here. And that's what happened. I mean,
that is so Gene Corrigan.
So I got up and I left because that's the way he was. You know, what he said went.
Yeah, because you stormed into his office. I remember, and for sports bras, right? Because you said, "Look, my
that
team
was a little
needs."
Bit later, but it was Dick Schultz that was there then, and James O. West. And my team needed sports bras, and this was when nobody even knew about sports bras.
Sure.
It was kind of a new thing. So we go up there trying to get these sports bras, and they weren't going to give them to us because they cost too much. And by the end of the conversation, after we'd gone back and done all this stuff, I had a petition, and all the coaches signed it, including George Welsh and Terry Holland.
You did a coach's petition? I didn't realize that part of the story.
Because they were sitting there they're looking at the list, is Dick and Jim West, and he goes, now look. What is Mark Bernardino doing on here? Mark Bernardino, they don't need bras. They're swimmers. They don't wear bras in swimming. I said, yeah, but sometimes they go out and they run. And he said, they don't need bras. So then he goes, what is George Welsh? And you must have forged George Welsh. I said, no, I didn't. I actually got him to sign it. I didn't tell him what it was for, but I got him to sign it. And
I didn't realize.
And Terry Holland said, I'll do anything for the girls.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean my girls. He meant the girls. The breast girls.
The girls.
Yeah,
the girls. Yeah.
Said, I'll do anything for the girls.
That sounds like Terry Holland, too. Mm-hmm. I did not realize you got a petition to get
I got a
sports
petition.
Bras. But Dick then okayed it, and Dick Schultz okayed it?
No. They didn't. They turned me down. So as I was leaving, and I said, why? Why are you turning me down? And they said, because jocks are only $5 and bras are $30. So we can't do this. So as I was leaving, I stopped and I turned around and I had a book like this big, like a big, thick book of research saying we had to have these things. And so I turned around and I said, if a bra was $5 and a jock was $30, would you not give the men a jock?
Yeah.
And they said, all right, you can have them. It's just ridiculous. So then the whole country got them. Everybody. They called me and they said, how'd you do that? I said,
really?
Well, here's all the research and here's what I did.
Really?
Yeah. So it was great. It was really great.
You mean to tell me that women's basketball, is even as late as 1980, sports bras were not being used?
No, they weren't.
They weren't invented? They were
just being invented. It was a little small company called Jog Bra.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember sitting with Phil Knight one night saying, you need to buy this company because this is going to be big, big, big. Everybody's going to be wearing these soon.
How about that?
And he said, well, we're talking about trying to do it ourselves and yada, yada, yada. And I'm saying, you should buy this company. And then he got involved in Taiwan and the whole thing fell apart. And they never really got a good bra until later, much later. And he still today says, I really should have listened to you about that. I should have bought that company.
How about that?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know. I knew the little part of that story.
That's a huge story. It's a huge story.
Well, it'll be in your book, which we'll talk about later, which I hope you do. 421, we'll get a break. We'll come back. We're going to open up the phone lines, 888-484-3622, 888 for the mag. If you want to say hi to Debbie. We have a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover about the career here, the 34 years, the 736 wins, a long way to go. So she'll be here till 5 o'clock. This is Inbounds. We are the M2 Network. If there's anybody in this world that understands a great night out, it's me. Hey, you got to have wonderful TV. You got to have a great staff. You got to have good food. Well, it's all at Boylan Heights.